He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
It is Hawaiian Shirt Friday on the Alex Marlow Show, and I've come up with my other nice Hawaiian shirt. I've only got two. Remember, this is going to be a big tension for me because we know that it's Hawaiian Shirt Friday. If you wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans, it's encouraged, even though I think I'm breaking one of my own rules. I think I got the elastic waistband on. I'm not respecting the audience with that. But how would you ever know? That's the whole point. We're in such a funny world now. But this is a nice shirt, and maybe that means we're going to have a good show. We'll start with the big thing. Robert Kennedy, who has been tapped to be the Health and Human Services Secretary. By the time you're hearing this, you'll have gotten a lot of people's take on it. So I want to add what I think is where I can distinguish myself versus my other colleagues in the commentariat. And I think this is a great pick. And I say this as someone who does not necessarily agree with everything Kennedy does in terms of his approach to medicine and some of the things that are the things that he's caught up on. I don't agree on all of it. And in fact, I think that a lot of what's ailing us in this country basically comes down to the fact that we're just overeating. That's the main thing, is that food is very yummy and we mass produce it and we enhance it to make it even more delicious and less nutritious. And then we eat too much of it. And that's really kind of the problem. I don't know if it's mercury and everything. And I don't know if it's big government conspiracies, though there's certainly few, by the way. I mean, the whole idea of the food pyramid, it's one of the original government conspiracies. Do you guys know how much 11 servings of grain a day would be? I mean, of course we're all obese if that's what the government was telling us. It's absolutely ridiculous. And meat's at the top of the food chain, probably the easiest, the top of the food pyramid. Probably the most nutritious and best use of your calories is, generally speaking, lean meat. And that is, you're supposed to do that sparingly so you have more time to eat fettuccine Alfredo, I guess. So that was always a hoax, and I get it. But I will say overall, what he represents is a massive reset for how we're approaching health in this country. I have a lot of family members who are traditional practicing Western medicine. And so I will bring to you, when it makes sense, to note where I feel like he might be going off the deep end if he does. But that's not really the point here. The point here is that we have been misled by public health. And this is why Health and Human Services is where he landed and why it's such a big deal. It's not that the doctors are so bad. It's not that the healthcare providers are so bad and the nurses are so bad. The issue is the public health officials, the people who are tasked with communicating with the American people about what is really going on in the health industry, what are the trends with ourselves, and what should a government policy be to try to help us out. They've done a terrible job setting that policy and a worse job articulating it. And he represents a full reset. He's going to be able to look under the hood and to be able to see where all the problems are happening. The face of public health in this country was Dr. Fauci. And this really was even before the pandemic, which he blew at every turn. First of all, he was involved in funding that Wuhan lab, which is where it came from, almost certainly. And the cover-up that ensued was absurd. Then every move he made along the way was wrong, suggesting we shouldn't wear masks. Then we should wear masks. Then kids should wear masks. And it was a public health hazard if you didn't have your mask on, or double mask. Maybe it should have been triple mask. Maybe it should have been quadruple masks. When really the main thing was duration of exposure to the coronavirus, not having enough ventilation in the rooms you were in. And the bottom line was, it was that older people who were out of shape, high blood pressure, hypertension, were treated totally different. Were treated exactly the same as the NBA All-Stars. And that was absurd, and that was ridiculous. And we have the public health officials to blame. And the pharmaceutical companies, which actually delivered vaccines that were so-so, they weren't as bad as you read on right-wing Twitter. They were merely so-so. They weren't the greatest ever, but then they sold them like this was some sort of miracle elixir that was going to save the planet. And it wasn't true. So it was going to help some older people and perhaps cause complications for healthier younger people. And we were not told that. So who's to blame and how do you fix it? There's a lot of blame to go around, and needless to say, almost no one got fired who was responsible for botching the coronavirus. But we do know that there's a new regime in town, and Robert Kennedy is the perfect guy to take a look at the Health and Human Services Department, which is it's completely infected. And he needs to go in, clean house, and reset the way we talk about health and nutrition and the way he puts it, chronic disease in this country. He's also adding to the super low body fat caucus that Trump has built up. He's got Tulsi Gabbard in there. He's got Pete Hegseth in there. Probably some others I'm not thinking about, but he really does like the low body fat percentage type person. That's who he's appealing to right now. So I'm super excited about this, even though I know I won't agree with every single medical recommendation that Robert Kennedy has. I love what he represents. He represents accountability. He represents trying to get the people who have been fat and happy for too long in our bureaucracy to start questioning things. The scientific method is all about questioning your hypotheses. It's the first thing you learn if you're studying science, first thing you learn if you're studying medicine. You always have to test your hypotheses. And there's no settled science. The whole concept that I guess originated with Al Gore when he was talking about the climate, that's all baloney. It's all bogus. There is no such thing as the science being settled. The science can change all the time. It's part of the nature of why America is such an amazing place and we have such innovative healthcare, is that there is endless incentive to try to make products even better, try to have fewer side effects, try to make them more efficient, try to make them cheaper. We don't want the science to be settled. When the science is settled, then innovation stops. So he's an innovator, and he's someone who takes a completely different approach to this very important space. And I really want to hear what he's got to say, and I want to see what he has to do. The other thing that I love about this pick is that it is, again, Trump going to his loyalists, people who Trump means a lot to them. And I love that because, again, the polar opposite of what Trump did at the beginning of his first administration, where he tried to cozy up people who gave him a hard time while he was running, those never Trumpers. Kennedy's the opposite. Kennedy's a guy who sought out Trump. They courted each other's approval. And let me play you a clip. This is mind-blowing stuff. This is from Bobby Kennedy Jr. I'm going to play this. This is a speech he just gave.
5. I spend 30 minutes praying.
He tries again. I think I lost it. There we go.
I get out of bed. And my prayer is this. I ask God for 19 years to put me in a position where I could end the chronic disease epidemic and bring health back to our children.
Unbelievable. He prayed for 19 years, and then the clip goes on to say that he prayed for 19 years, and then God brought him Donald Trump. So it's perfect spot for him. I think it's exactly right. I'm glad he ended up there over the FDA or as a Surgeon General, something like that. I think this makes more sense. So let's see how he does. And if he does an amazing job and if he makes America healthier, maha, not just handsome. It doesn't just stand for make America handsome again. It's make America healthy again. If he makes progress, then you can bet he'll be in the conversation for president in 4 years as well, which is interesting because with a voice like that, it's striking. And I bring this up because he's actually one of the most articulate public people in America when it comes to wordsmithing, word choice. If you read his endorsement speech of Donald Trump from this cycle, it'll blow you away. It is one of the best laid out speeches, a classically laid out speech with a perfect arc, great personal anecdotes, data, all this stuff that just encapsulates Donald Trump's appeal and why the media lost the trust from people like him, lifelong Democrats. And you would have to think that he's the type of guy who would be really the top tier for presidential consideration, but he's got that strange voice, which is just off-putting for certain people. But I get over it. I'm over it, and I want to see what he can do, and I could be more excited about it. And it's just triggering people in the media. Jake Tapper has already promised a measles epidemic. We're going to keep an eye on some of the vaccine stuff because some of the newfangled ones that are not as rigorously tested and has not been accepted by the public, those are obviously should not be mandated and things like that. But we got to keep an eye on certain things that have kept us healthy over a long period of time and are well-known, well-tested, well-studied, that people don't start turning away from some of those because, you haven't had polio in a while. We don't want it to come back. But let's see what he does. I have a feeling he's going to prove to be much more reasonable than his critics fear. And one other thing about this pick that I think is really, really important is that Trump continues to build on this huge tent concept where he's trying to redefine what it means to be a Republican, where he's trying to make it a home. This was a Tucker Carlson event where that clip came from. You heard the applause that he was getting. This is nice. This is nice stuff. It's a nice moment for the country where a lot of people who see Kennedy as their guy, anti-establishment guy, doesn't fit neatly in both parties. And to see not just Trump embrace him, but to see him embrace Trump, I think that does a heck of a lot of good. And there's a lot more that we'll say about this as time goes on. But this is one of the most interesting picks imaginable. It's one that is putting the deep state on notice. One thing that I think is a commonality amongst the criticisms of Trump's cabinet thus far from the left is they're afraid, they're fearful, every pick is the worst pick they've ever heard, nothing makes sense to them, how could this be, et cetera, et cetera. You know who's the most fearful? It's not the people. The people want to give these types of people a shot. Outsiders are coming in, want to clean house. They know there's government waste. They know the government's messing up certain things like public health, clearly. And they want a fresh slate. You know who's most in fear? The people who are members of the government and are people whose business relies on the government. The media class that needs those government leaks, the deep state that needs those government contracts for when they go into contracting and consulting and the defense industry, et cetera. Those are the people who are the most upset about this slate that Trump's bringing in. And that should give all of you a deep sense of comfort that Trump is erring on the side of outsiders. He's erring on the side of people who are going to support him in his effort to dismantle the deep state and dismantle the type of swamp mentality that's gotten him harassed for so long. Top to bottom, every single pick we're talking about is fits that mold. And let's not forget, I mean, the triggering really is pretty exceptional. Everyone just seems to be freaking out over it. Another thing that is a theme is as more people come into the big tent, a lot of people suggesting that Trump could be a historical figure. Let's play a clip of Sylvester Stallone. This is really going around, and I'm really moved by this one.
When I did Rocky, if you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus, and it says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was going to happen. This man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. We are in the presence of a really mythical character. I love mythology. And this individual does not exist on this planet. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off, so I'm in awe. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations.
The water is getting warm for people out in Hollywood, people who are on the sidelines, because they're seeing Andrew Breitbart's vision is coming true. It's just much cooler now to be a conservative. You're much more free. It's a little edgier. There's that thrill of standing up for your values. And the left is just completely backed into a corner now, as I've been repeating all week. They don't have a playbook. They've got no moves. They've got no fresh blood. They've got no charismatic people. They don't have any values that are that persuasive to us. So when you're starting to see people come out of the sidelines, I was very moved and interested to see a tweet from a guy named Zachary Levi, who's a Hollywood star. He's played superheroes. He's been on top TV shows. And I've kind of seen him around LA over the years. And I always got the impression he was one of us. He was a conservative, but it wouldn't quite go out there. And he finally came out this cycle and said, I endorse Trump. And then yesterday he tweets a picture of the Breitbart article, which had been printed out for him, probably by Natalie Harp in Trump's office, signed by Donald Trump and mailed to him. And he was excited about it. And he puts out a tweet saying how he was stunned by it and how happy he was to see it. Justine Bateman, Jason Bateman's sister, but also was a very popular actress, maybe still is. But I know she's in a lot of stuff and she's a lot younger. And she's just roasting lefties on Twitter now. Like, the whole platform is just Joy Reid's leaving, the UK Guardian's leaving, all these Stephen King's going to leave. All these wokesters don't want to be in the public square, which is the X Twitter platform. And in the meantime, you've got these celebrities coming out of the closet like never before as conservatives and roasting the wokeness. These are bold statements in a very hostile industry. And Stallone's going to work because he's good and he's popular. But not everyone is going to work when they come out and do this. And they look like they're pariahs when they get on set. And they deserve a lot of credit. They deserve a lot of credit. And it's very exciting to see all this stuff. By the way, a report from Politico has resurfaced. A report from Politico has resurfaced that Robert Kennedy Jr. was considered for Barack Obama's cabinet. So Barack Obama was considering him, and Politico framed it as rock stars in his cabinet. So Obama considers stars for cabinet. Mikey Allen. This is November the 5th, 2008. President-elect Barack Obama is strongly considering Robert F. Kennedy to head the Environmental Protection Agency, a cabinet post, Democrat officials told Politico. How fun is that? Come on. That's fun stuff. All right, keeps making good picks. He had Doug Collins. It's another good pick. It's funny, those of you, when this show comes out, I'll have already been on Larry Kudlow's show today, but with a fill-in host, because our friend Larry Kudlow is apparently getting considered for Treasury Secretary and for the President's Economic Council to be President Trump's top advisor. That's going to be a mixed bag if that happens for me, because if he ends up leading the Economic Council, then does he try to poach my man John Carney, our economic and finance editor at Breitbart? I mean, that'd be amazing, but also I have to scramble on that one. Treasury, we're still rooting for Scott Bessent, who we've been talking about a little bit on the show, but it looks like Howard Lutnick's thrown his name in there as well. Howard Lutnick is the billionaire from the who has been making a big appearance at the Madison Square Garden rally and has been a big part of Trump's transition. And he's got an amazing national narrative, but is pretty new, as far as I could tell, to Trump world. I wasn't really familiar with him until a few weeks ago, and now all of a sudden he's in the running to be the head of the Treasury. And I think we got a perfect guy in Bessent, who's a true genius and knows the world. But one thing that tipped me off that maybe it's not going to be Bessent is that Bessent put out an article in Fox where he was articulating how important tariffs are. So that led me to believe that maybe he's getting the impression there's some wishy-washiness going on. So he's penned a powerful defense of tariffs in Fox News. But again, that makes me think that maybe that means that he feels like he's not going to be the guy and he's trying to get back on top, because he was the pick for a while, I thought. And he would have been our pick at Breitbart, I think. Of course, Kudlow would be amazing. So anyway, I don't have anything negative to say about Lutnick. I just don't know much about him. Other than that, he's a rich guy and Trump likes him. And he gave a really fiery speech in Madison Square Garden. But Bessent, I know, is he is institutional knowledge when it comes to the America First economic policy. And the reset on trade and tariffs, you need someone who deeply understands it, because this person is going to be under tremendous heat. Because a lot of the Republican Party and most of the Democrat Party, I don't think, understands that tariffs are necessary, and the threat of tariffs are really necessary. And it's going to shock people when Trump actually does it, because it's not just a power move, it's not just a head fake. He can use it that way, but he really needs to bring back American jobs, American manufacturing, and make sure that we have a huge economic growth engine in this country. And a lot of that's going to come from the idea of implementing tariffs and also threatening tariffs when we don't implement them. More on that in a later show, but interesting stuff over there within the cabinet. And we need some help right now. General Motors laying off 1,000 workers. Cost cutting needed to remain competitive. Simon Kent wrote this up for us at Breitbart News. They announced on Friday laying off 1,000 workers worldwide, cutting costs as it tries to compete in a crowded global automobile market. The GM workers impacted, mostly white collar, were told early in the morning as they prepared for the weekend. The company confirmed layoffs in a statement. 1,000 a lot. As I wrote about in great detail in Breaking Biden, there's no company in America that's more closer tied to Joe Biden than General Motors. That is the company, if there ever was one, that is tied in with the Biden family. And the history between them is it's really deep, and I lay it all out, and you can check it all out at Breaking Biden if you read the book. But this is, Biden has always tried to favor General Motors when he's talking about contracts, trying to get them government deals, trying to get tax breaks to keep them afloat. And foreign investment has helped them quite a bit in a lot of ways, and they still have layoffs. So it just shows you that any kind of myth that we're in some sort of a manufacturing boom is not here yet. But what is happening is savvier, better run foreign companies, thanks to Donald Trump and his policies from his first administration, have come in and they've set up shop here. And so a lot of American manufacturers are getting competition from American-made cars from foreign-owned companies. So you never like to see it, but it is noteworthy because it just confirms the reality on the ground is that the economy is not in great shape and we need to have an economic revival. It's going to start with tapping that energy sector and getting the right people in those key positions. And there's no indication that we're not going to get the right people to this point. All right, other stuff that's going on. More on the cabinet. Look at what's going on still over on MSNBC. I want to play what's going on over on MSNBC. This time about Pete Hegseth.
And the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who, weekend host, important distinction. This is someone who, is known to be a white supremacist, known to be an extremist, whose platform, whose book is basically about his opposition to the advancement of black officers to the top brass.
So he wrote a book about the advancement of black officers to the top brass of the military. It got to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and no one pointed out until just now. How stupid does this woman, I couldn't even look up who this person is, but how stupid does she think the audience is? This is defamation. He should sue. You can't just call someone a white supremacist without any basis, without one iota of evidence. She doesn't supply one piece of evidence. She misinterprets, I'm sure, some line in his book. You think Fox would have let a known white supremacist on the air? Do you know the scandal? The advertisers who would have fled Fox? You can't be on a show anymore in the post-2016 era. Advertisers have boycotted conservative businesses since Donald Trump won. Fox would not be able to stay in business if they had a known white supremacist on the air. She goes out and she says he's a known white supremacist. Should we be depressed or should we be happy about this stuff? Because it just reveals they've got nothing, they've got nothing, they've got nothing, they've got nothing. That's what it reveals. But it still is upsetting to hear people just smeared and that Chris Hayes just sits there like a bump on a log. What a mediocrity. Another relief that that's all they got on primetime at MSNBC. That's all they've got. Him, and they got Maddow once a week. Maddow was on some Maddow clips. I got some Maddow. I want to see what she's up to. It's good to check in with Maddow because she's smart, but she's also lazy. So let's hear what she's got going.
We saw what was going to happen, and now it is happening. And so I do feel like this is a moment for people to get real and for people to stop saying, like, oh, this is going to end up being much more moderate than anybody expected. When are you going to stop? So when are you going to start apologizing for saying that democracy was threatened? I mean, I think it's time to get real and realize that this is.
It's a threat to democracy that the president is picking his own cabinet. And she's shocked that he's actually picking the people that he said he was going to pick. This is just, we should just be delighted. And they don't know what to do. They've got the stupid grins on their face. Nicole Wallace is on the screen now, any of you watching. And guys, please subscribe. We're doing great. And the more subscribers, the better we're going to do. YouTube, iTunes, or I guess it's Apple Podcasts now, Spotify. Thank you for subscribing. If you're watching on the feeds on YouTube or Rumble, then you're seeing a bunch of goofy grins. These women are lost.
Really what we're up against. But I also think the fact that we all feel a little bit, I don't know if flummoxed is the right word, sort of rocked by the increasing incredulity of these choices, is that it is meant to shock us. It's meant to adjust
That's true.
our
She's
sense
right.
of what is normal, what is possible, and to sort of so disorient us as to what it counts to propose governance in the United States that we're ready for the most radical pronouncements and actions. And I do think we're supposed to feel the way that we do right now. I think that's part of this. It's a shock and awe campaign against American traditions and mores.
It is. That's true.
And that's, I think, how most of the country feels.
But more so than it's a shock and awe campaign, these are the people that helped him along the way. These are his closest allies. And instead of trying to bring in the Washington establishment as he did last time, he's bringing in the people that actually helped him win this time. And believe it or not, Robert Kennedy's a Democrat. Believe it or not, Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat. This is a bipartisan coalition here. Pete Hegseth is not a radical guy. He's only radical in that he thinks wokeness is destroying our military. There's no evidence he's some sort of a radical. The guy's got a huge tattoo in his forearm that says "We the People" on it. The guy loves this country. And that scares them because they don't love this country. They think this country is flawed. They think our Constitution's flawed. They think our people are garbage. Remember how yesterday I brought up how Rachel Zegler, who is this star that Hollywood is trying to foist on us, even though no one has gone to any of her movies so far. She did a Hunger Games reboot that no one saw, and she did a Spielberg West Side Story remake that no one saw. And she had to issue a big-time apology because, as I highlighted on yesterday's show, she had said that she hopes that, I want to get the exact quote for you, may Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Some of the Disney companies forcing on us. So she had to come out, give a big apology, wants to give a sincere apology for the election post she shared. Then she says, hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding. And I'm sorry I contributed to the negative discourse. No, you and all those people like you in Hollywood is what caused us to do this. We're getting more negative because we keep getting attacked. We keep getting attacked by people like Rachel Zegler, who knows nothing about the world. So she's a meaningless little gnat, and no one cares about her other than people who've lost their power, lost their edge, and lost their mojo in Hollywood. And that's great. But it is noteworthy that this is still clearly what goes for establishment thought in many corners of the entertainment world. I'm here to see it. I got more mad out. I got to keep going on this.
Do that because you want the worst for these agencies, because you want the worst for the U.S. government, because you think that the U.S. government is worthless. That's part of consolidating power, to make the U.S. government nothing other than the leader and people who will do what he says. And there not being any repository.
This is just absolutely false. Tulsi Gabbard is a true original. Robert Kennedy is a true original. Matt Gaetz is an original. He's Trumpian in his attitude, but he stands up to the crowd. He led that coup where, what did he get? How many Republican votes ended up going with that coup to oust Kevin McCarthy? It was like 8 votes, like 14 votes. It wasn't many people, but it was enough to get what he wanted. He got a lot of attention and he got a guy he didn't like out of there. So these are American individuals. It's such phony baloney that it's just being subservient to Trump. Trump is doing them a solid by putting them in these roles that they've wanted and that they could be very good at. But I'll tell you her point overall that I think is the most important one is that these people are a threat to the government, and they do want to dismantle the government, and they do want to blow things up. And we do need to remove certain agencies entirely. We do need to cut some of them by 80%. We're going to save the people so much money when we do that. And we're going to encourage people who work for the government to get some skills and to try to be more competitive in the workforce. This is a historic opportunity, and it's only going to be people who don't fear the Rachel Maddows of the world and the NBC News of the world. Those are the only people who are going to be able to pull this off. How do we do with people like Alejandro Mayorkas? Let's play Secretary Mayorkas here. This is an important clip.
Well, Joe, I'm not going to speculate about electoral outcomes, but I can tell you this, that the model that we have in place now have driven the number of encounters at the southern border down below 2019 levels, the last year before the pandemic struck our country and the world.
Okay, this is not even why I played the clip, but it's just an outrageous lie. The reason why the encounters are down is because we have something called the parole pipeline. Catch and release is over. So all you have to do is go to one of the points of entry, sign the guest book, and you're allowed to enter the country and allegedly show up at some hearing that you're probably not going to show up at. That's why there's not as many encounters. Because what they've done is they did this head fake where they cracked down a little bit in between checkpoints and they lessened up the enforcement at checkpoints. So there's no real incentive to try to sneak through between checkpoints. You just go to the checkpoint and they let you in. There's no catch and release. There's no remain in Mexico. I'm sorry, there is catch and release. There's no remain in Mexico. This guy is such a liar. Oh, man, I can't wait for him to be gone. Let's keep going.
We're facing an unprecedented level of displacement of people around the world. We have actually built an architecture now that is proving tremendously successful.
We don't care. We don't care. We care about Americans. We've tried to care about the whole world. This was the whole philosophy of both party establishments for my entire early adulthood. And what did it get us? We got us a more disorganized world where there were more devastation, and more regions that were war-torn just got worse. So we can't focus on that. We need to be the best America we can be. We need to be the city on the hill. We need to inspire people. We can take in some of the best immigrants if they're going to immediately contribute to the society. We cannot absorb the entire world the way Alejandro Mayorkas would like it. And the Democrats in general would like it. We can't do that. It's not going to make the world a better place. We'll make the world a better place if America is that city on a hill, inspires other nations to up their games.
Right. It was more recent than I think some of the damage had already been done, Mr. Secretary, just with all due respect. Anything prior to that, like from the inception of the administration, that could have been done differently? It was something that a lot of people it became a major flashpoint in
no
people's thinking for the election.
No question. It did, Joe. And remember where we were. Remember where we were up through May of 2023. Everyone across the aisle was really supporting the continuation of Title 42, the public health order, not an immigration measure, but a public health order, because we were still climbing out of the pandemic more rapidly than any country in the hemisphere, but nevertheless still encountering it. So remember what the push was until May of 2023. And then what the administration did was correctly push for more funding for the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the only enduring solution, which is legislation.
He's got no regrets. He's got no regrets. He's happy about everything. That's the main point. That's why I let him roll, because he's not saying anything. And this is their move. They don't have anything to say. They have nothing to say about what's going on, and they have no new tools in their toolkit. Nancy Pelosi's filed paperwork for 2026 reelection. Are any of you surprised by this? Where's she going to get all of her stock picks if she doesn't go back to Washington? They know nothing else. All they know is how to be a part of the government. 84-year-old politician. San Francisco has deteriorated on her watch. She's been in the House there my entire life. I guess there was half a term in my life where she wasn't there. So I was born in 1986. She was there in 1987. 20th term last week, and she's going to do it again, run it back. Is that inspiring to you guys? They will not ride off into the sunset. They can't do it. They love power. They love it. And Trump is a big threat to their power. That's why you got to run up the score right now. A few other things I want to mention to you on the show today. We got a really cool note from the Federal Communications Commission, a guy named Brendan Carr, one of the bright spots in our government. And he's called on big tech platforms to dismantle the censorship cartel. Sean Moran writes this up for us at Breitbart News, charging that American democracy depends on it. Carr states that the tech masters of the universe, in conjunction with the Orwellian name NewsGuard, fact-checking groups and ad agencies have enforced one-sided narratives. He writes this letter. NewsGuard is one of the supervillains of Breitbart News. They're one of these organizations, self-appointed hall monitors of the internet. Their board is all deep state establishment types, the Michael Haydens of the world. And they're trying to separate advertisers from conservative media. That's their goal. I wrote extensively about this in my first book, Breaking the News. There's a new edition out for 2024. So everyone should check that out if you want to get a deeper sense of my thinking on this, or just go to Breitbart.com and you can search for all of our NewsGuard articles. But some of the bad guys on the planet, and the FCC already calling them out. From the letter, Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and others have played central roles in the censorship cartel. And the Orwellian name NewsGuard fact-checkers, groups, and ad agencies helped enforce one-sided narratives. The censorship cartel must be dismantled. And he sends this 2-page letter. He wrote to CEO Sundar Pichai of Google, Satya Nadella of Microsoft, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and Tim Apple, aka Tim Cook, about how their platforms have worked often in concert with so-called media monitors to defund, demonetize, and otherwise put out businesses, put out of business news outlets and organizations that dare to deviate from the approved narrative. It's good stuff. NewsGuard should be investigated deeply. He also references advertising agency GARM, which is a complicated group that has been under assault lately. I did a really long video with our friends at PragerU. You can search for this on YouTube with Marissa Streit, their CEO, where I explain GARM. It's a long one and it's a deep dive. You guys will like that. And it was shut down after Elon Musk filed a lawsuit against it, which we covered in great detail. But this was a huge win for the First Amendment. But Musk sent an antitrust lawsuit against it, another censorship organization that bites the dust. But it is these entities that are out there, these are the ultimate blacklisters. These are the people that are trying to end free speech on the internet by trying to stifle the ability for thriving speech to be able to make money. And that means it makes it harder for people like me to recruit because it means I got a little less money in the bank. Even if we're successful, then our rates are a little lower because we've been boycotted thanks to these hall monitors who always smear us. They always lie. And their main goal is to target our businesses. But we got an ally in the FCC who's calling them out. Let's see where it goes. I love a strongly worded letter, but let's see. But I feel like there's a message being sent, and I'm getting the impression that Silicon Valley is understanding it, that if they're part of the censorship cartel and if they abide by the whims of the censorship cartel, this well-funded left-wing industry that's trying to take out entities like Breitbart and many of my peers on Salem, et cetera, if they abide by that, then there's going to be hell to pay from the Trump administration. So hopefully big things to come in this regard, and we will be monitoring this in a big way at Breitbart News. All right. Other things, there's a couple other things I want to mention here from the news. Taylor Swift sees her Eras Tour ticket prices plummet following Trump victory. That's how we framed it at Breitbart News. So you guys can give me your thoughts at aloha@alexmarlow.com. Do you think that it's because everyone's already been to her show that want to see it? Or do we think that it's because of her support for the failed Kamala Harris? I don't know. But we'll go with it was her supporting Harris. But her brand should be tarnished. She's got terrible political instincts. Recall that she stood up for against Marsha Blackburn and in Tennessee, the only other time she really got involved politically, and Blackburn kicked her butt, and that was pretty cool. Another disappointing one coming out of Hollywood. Everyone's excited about the new Gladiator 2 reboot. The previews are really cool. Stars Denzel Washington, maybe the most beloved movie star. And Denzel said there was a gay kiss in it and it got cut. But why do they have to put this in everything? And I have to say this, I hope that this is not regarded as homophobic. It doesn't mean to be homophobic, but why do we have to continue to impose these narratives, these woke narratives everywhere? He was doing some interview with a woman who's got a rainbow flag in the background. So it was the LGBTQ focused media group Gaiety. Everyone thinks Denzel's a great guy, upstanding Christian guy. You notice he never speaks out politically. The fact he never speaks out politically leads you to believe can't be on the left, can he? So I don't blame him necessarily. He's just marketing his film. I'm sure he wants it to be a big hit, but just stop doing this. Stop forcing it. Stop forcing it on us. We don't like it. Can we just go and be entertained? I spoke to John Nolte at Breitbart News. If you go over the Breitbart Fight Club today, the interview today about Breitbart Confidential, which is my show I do for our premium members over there, I interviewed John Nolte, senior writer for us at Breitbart. And we talked a little bit about movies, and he went to a couple movies. The latest one, I don't remember the title off the top of my head, but it is with The Rock. Let me see if I can pull it up for y'all really quick. I think you can handle that. But there's a new Rock movie coming out. It's Christmas themed. He said that thing has read something or other, but he said it's got I got to look this up. This is embarrassing. I should have better memory. Read one. And he said no wokeness in it. A movie called Honora, which is critics are going absolutely bananas for this movie. Another one that he said was sexy and no wokeness in it. Can we get back to this stuff? Can we get back to apolitical movies? We want to go. Again, not to plug it for a third time, but I wrote about this extensively in my favorite chapter of Breaking Biden, where I wrote about how Joe Biden ruined Hollywood. Yes, Joe Biden ruined Hollywood. That's a fact. I wrote extensively about how Americans still want to go to movies. We've had 3 of the top 10 movies of all time in the last 5 years or so. One of the Spider-Mans, one of the Avatars, and Top Gun, Maverick. People want to go. They just want to go for a certain type of movie, and they don't want to get the woke nonsense. Is that so much to ask? Speaking of non-woke entertainment, you guys got to tell me if you care about this Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight that is, I think tonight as we're recording this. The huge market for boxing, and we're just all in the MMA thing now, which I'm cool with. I don't care, but it's people like boxing, and the showmanship is beyond belief. Mike Tyson's 58, he's in great shape. Jake Paul started out as a goofy YouTuber, and now he's really trains as a boxer and kind of is pretty good. And they're huge. They put on tons of weight. They're 220 pounds or so. And they had their weigh in, and it was just the showmanship was beyond belief. Paul comes in and immediately steps on Mike Tyson's toe, and Tyson smacks him in the cheek. It's just, the performance art is ridiculous. The hype is ridiculous. And it's fun. And we should be allowed to have fun in a apolitical way in this country. But maybe some of you think it's bad, it's dangerous. Maybe one of them gets hurt, and I seem like a total idiot when I come in on Monday. It's possible. Mike Tyson's a pro fighter. Jake Paul's not. Jake Paul's a young guy in his physical prime. Mike Tyson's almost 60. So this could go bad, but I'm curious. I'm interested. And so what if it's an exhibition as far as I'm concerned? So email me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. Give me your thoughts on that. And anything else you're thinking under the sun. I can't thank you all enough for subscribing and for making sure the shows show up fresh in your feeds. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, get them all. 5-star reviews, leave your comments. I've been reading every comment. Some are critical, some are very nice, some are in between. All good. Let me highlight, I pulled out a couple from across the web. Hope Pusher. I like the rifle hair look. Thank you, Alex, for coming back to the airwaves. You were my morning Joe for years. I like that. It's kind of a little tongue-in-cheek there. When we lost Rush, you became my go-to for news along with Tucker. Thank you. That's what I'm here for. My number one goal, I want you to get an hour news digest, under an hour, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it is, and get a sense of what I think is the most important stuff from my perch at the Breitbart Virtual Newsroom. And anytime to be lumped in with Rush and Tucker, I am going to appreciate it. No more moves remaining. Why? Spire Stocks writes. Because there is no policy, no gain, no rationality, no logic, no critical thinking, hence no moves, no direction, no magnitude, no vector. This is his commentary on my commentary on how the left has no moves. The left spins in circles and always in one direction. Hence, unbeknownst to them, they become dizzy on emotion alone. Well said. Good comment. The left's got nothing. If you think they got anything, flag it for me. I want it on my radar. CN Dusty writes on Rumble. Found out you're on Rumble this morning while you were talking to Mike Slater on Breitbart News Daily. I love the way you and Mike explain things calmly and don't just scream at us the whole time. People can actually learn by listening to you and Slater rather than just end up being worn out and being left with nothing but more shared misery. Most of us already agree with many conservative talk show hosts, but just end up feeling the misery and anger rather than feeling informed and inspired by the way you both host the show. Thank you. So this is just my style. I'm not going to yell at you unless I get really worked up about my Orcus lying. But for the most part, I'm not going to yell. I'm not a yeller. I don't think it's that persuasive. But that said, if you don't think I love tuning in and listening to Mark Levin yell, I do love it. It's great. It's fine. It's just not me. It's not me. I guess I grew up on enough talk radio to know that you got to have authentic voice, and mine's just not to scream at people. You won't be getting that, though. I love my screamers. We only have the best screamers. All right, David Johnson writes, Alex, I've missed you so much. Not a devout podcast listener, but now I am. I'm sorry, this is Janet Andrews writes this. My mistake. FYI, Eva Longoria has been living out of the country for a long time. She gave the impression that she was finally leaving, but that's just not true. More smoke from the left. So Eva Longoria is leaving the country because of Trump, but maybe she was lying and she'd already left the country even under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because she's just really globalist internationalist. She was bad news. She was not just an actress. She was a deep activist who was trying to take over Spanish language radio stations on behalf of George Soros, and a good riddance. I hope she's gone for good. David Johnson, I have noticed that your view on Elon Musk has changed significantly in a relatively short period of time. Do you have reservations with Trump aligning with him so closely, especially considering he's a Democrat? I don't know if he's a Democrat. I don't know if that's true. Maybe. But yes, of course. Musk is so powerful. He's so persuasive. He's got a massive platform. He's going to get a lot of what he wants. And I think a lot of what he wants could be deals with China that I'm not going to go along with. So of course I'm concerned about that. But he seems committed to Trump winning, to free speech, to taking back the culture. And lately he's just hitting them all out of the park. So I'm going to come to you with some nuance, A lot of right-wing talkers are just going to say what a great guy, he's a perfect guy. I'm not going to do that, but I'm also not going to harp on some of the bad stuff I think he's done, notably cozying up with China over the years right now, because I think he's doing a lot of good, and I would love to see that continue because he is a massive force. And if he's on our side, good. I'm glad to have it. All right, that's today's show. First full week of shows. Thanks for telling 10,000 friends and family members. Thanks so much to our producer, Misty. Again, if you set your DVRs, I've been showing up on Kudlow and Laura Ingraham, and I'm on Breitbart News Daily with Mike Slater today. If you get that podcast, I'm on Breitbart News Saturday and SiriusXM tomorrow. I'll be hosting. Plug in this show, of course. And I was recently on Dr. Gorka's show. I was recently on Dinesh D'Souza's show. Big media blitz. Just search around and you'll find stuff. And I'll try to post them on my socials as well. AlexMarlow.com to subscribe. And we'll talk to you next week.